The Witch Overview. Which overview? Which overview? Which overview? Hi, I'm Jake. I make RPG supplements and videos about Pathfinder 2 or PF2. I love PF2, and as a longtime player of D&D and other games and lots of other games, including chess. I started with chess. I loved chess. Tangent, I want to share my thoughts on things I find along my journey. The Witch Overview will give you the tools to understand the basic abilities of a witch, including patrons and how they work. The witch is my favorite class because it fits my personal aesthetic. Like, look, I'm holding a wand, for Christ's sake. Intelligence is the primary stat of a witch, so you will have more starting skill proficiencies than martials and more than other non-intelligence-based casters. Your only good save is will. Your attack training sucks. Your armor training sucks. That, along with your 6 hit points, mean that you are not built for combat. Even though the witch allows you to enter melee combat with 2 feats, you're always going to be at a disadvantage compared to truly melee-oriented characters. You can offset this a little by buffing yourself with spells, but you'll still never be the main warrior in combat. I am so glad that they're changing how the witch's armaments work in the remaster, because right now it's a 2nd level feat, a 4th level feat, and then a 6th level feat, and an 8th level feat, and a... Now it's going to be, or already has been, at this point, depending on when you're watching the video, that you just take witch's armaments and you get claws and flingy hair. Awesome. I think it should also be better than it has been for putting spells through your claws, but we'll talk about that later. The witch's big claims to fame are spells and hexes, which are just special spells. Spells are stored in your familiar, which is an intelligent link to your patron and tries to urge you to do what your patron wants you to do. Your patron is essentially how you're a witch. They give you spells and guidance in return for doing their wishes. Witches get more familiar abilities to start with, and more later too. So there's a lot of thematic focus on a familiar, even if you don't choose to enhance them with special archetypes or feats. The patron is kind of the whole point of the witch. It's their subclass, yeah, but it's also a relationship they have with a powerful entity like the Warlock in 5e D&D, and 3 and 3.5 D&D, and probably other game systems. On to witch patrons. Witch patrons? Witch patrons. Apparently, I'm just going to keep repeating that joke. If you're watching this after the remaster, the patrons will have new names, and they will give a unique familiar ability and possibly an additional power that's particular to that patron. Your patron determines your spell list, a bonus skill, a focus spell called a hex or hex cantrip. There are multiple layers of hexes. We're just going to call them all hexes, because they're just witches' focus spells. And you get a 1st level spell that you can add to your spell book, which is your familiar. Your familiar holds all your spells, so you like commune with your familiar to memorize spells every day, whether it can talk or not. That could be annoying for other PCs in the group. It could be fun to roleplay. See, I love witches. There are 10 patrons, and they all have a distinct feel to them. First patron, Baba Yaga. This patron is very loosely based on the Russian, Lithuanian, and Slavic myths of the evil hag with a house with chicken feet. With Baba Yaga, you pull your witch spells from the occult spell list. You get the occultism skill for free. You gain the spirit object hex and chilling spray. Spirit object is a witch focus spell. The hex. It lets you briefly animate an object, and you can either use 1 action to cast the spell to move the object 25 feet, or 2 actions to make it move and make a melee attack for 1d4 damage plus your spellcasting ability modifier. Baba Yaga has the distinction of being the only patron that gives you a special ability just for choosing the patron, which should be part of every patron. You can choose an inanimate... Well, actually, not the specific ability. I mean, every patron should have a special thing tied to them, because that'd be great. More flavor, more uniqueness. Which is something they're also changing in the remaster. With Baba Yaga, you can choose an inanimate object as your familiar. It starts with no speeds, so you have to spend one of your familiar abilities to give it movement of some kind. So if you choose your familiar to be an object, it qualifies for the spell spirit object. So you can make your familiar move and attack, adding your spellcasting modifier for damage. Kind of cool. Gets it a little bit more movement around the battlefield. Plus, you've been enhancing your familiar, and it has more hit points than a regular object would that you're temporarily animating. I love the idea of stating that Baba Yaga is my personal patron. but the things you get from her as a patron doesn't do enough for me. And Chilling Spray, what's that about? Doesn't even make sense for her. I'll talk about that more later. Obviously, I have feelings. Second patron, Curse. Yeah, there are only 2 patrons that have names of specific people. The Curse patron gives you the Occult spell list, duh, and the Occultism skill, duh. That's the most common setup with these patrons. And the hex it gives is Evil Eye, and the spell Ray of Enfeeblement is added to your familiar book. Evil Eye is my favorite hex because of both the flavor and the effect. A target within 30 feet rolls a will save. On a failure, they're frightened 1, crit fail, frightened 2. And as long as you sustain the spell up to a minute, they can't reduce their frightened level below 1 for as long as you can see them. That's freaking cool. You're just consistently terrifying to them. That's dripping with flavor. Third patron, Fate. Spell list Occult, scale Occultism. Hex, Nudge Fate. Spell True Strike, which is nice. You can crit attacks with a witch because Spell Strike. Nudge Fate. The duration is sustained up to a minute. So this spell is a little complex and kind of silly. Once during the duration, when the target fails an attack roll, skill check, or saving throw, and a +1 status bonus would turn a critical failure into a failure or failure into a success, no getting critical successes with this, you grant the target a +1 status bonus to the check retroactively, changing the outcome appropriately. The spell then ends, and the target is temporarily immune for a minute. Or you could have just had Bless active. This can totally save the ass of someone on your team. Granted, but it's freaking boring. I'd rather make someone scared until they die. Wouldn't you? Fourth patron, Fervor. This patron basically represents some grand ideal, like a paladin's oath. You can flavor this basically however you like, from protect the forest to kill all the humans. Spell list, Divine, skill, religion, hex, stoke the heart. The granted spell, command, which is good, it's useful. Stoke the heart is kind of cool. It gives one creature a +2 to all damage rolls for up to a minute if you sustain it. So this applies to melee and ranged weapon attacks, unarmed attacks, even blast cantrips, kinetic impulses, hell, AoE spells, everything. Which is great. Now, I would say that the religion skill proficiency should change based on the grand ideal associated with the Fervor patron, like human lore to kill all humans. Or even society, in that case, I guess. Fifth patron, Mosquito Witch. This is the other patron that represents a specific entity. It's all about disease and swamps. Spell list, Primal, skill, nature. I know, go figure. Hex, Buzzing Bites, spell, Pest Form. I love Pest Form. It's just so much fun and allows for odd role-playing. That lobster is talking to you. Buzzing Bites. This is cool. Some kind of biting or stinging insect swarms all over target within 30 feet and deals 1d4 damage. Each round you sustain it, and if the target crit fails, they take double damage every round. And they're sickened 1 for the duration. And the sickened value can't be reduced below 1 while the spell is active. Which mostly means they can't use potions or elixirs, and they get -1 to all skill rolls and DCs. So this is potentially very powerful. I like this for a swamp-themed witch. It's perfect for that. A hag rising up out of the muck. I did a one-on-one roleplay with this kind of character on someone else's channel, GM Rufus. It was really fun. If you want to watch it, I'll link it at the end. And in the description too, both. Sixth patron, Night. Spell list, Occult, skill, Occultism, Hex, Shroud of Night. Spell granted, Sleep. Go figure. Sleep is really cool though. It can be quite useful. Shroud of Night covers the target's eyes in darkness for up to 1 minute, sustained. If they don't have dark vision, other creatures are all concealed to it, forcing it to succeed at a 5 flat check to target anyone with attacks or spells. You can also help a friend who has light blindness by targeting them with this spell because everything's dark. It's fine. The Hex is okay. It's really boring, but it is tactically useful. That being the case, I would never choose this. Just because it's not exciting enough. I'd rather have weird crap from my class. Seventh patron, Pacts. I always feel like I have to say that way, because they're not packs like pack of cigarettes or dogs. Seventh patron, Pacts. All about promises and bargains. Spell list, Occult, skill, Occultism, Hex, Pact Broker. Spell command, which is good. It's 1 turn of crowd control for 1 person, so command, good. Pact Broker. This hex is a little weird because you have to actually ask the enemy to participate. Essentially, you can give 1 creature -1 or -2 to attack and damage rolls against you and your allies if they fail or crit fail, respectively. Theoretically, because you have to propose a peaceful treaty to them, they may be taken off guard for a round, if you play it right. And then they get the penalties. Nothing in the spell says that you have to be honest about the peace. But if they do accept the offer of peace, you get -1 to deception checks to lie to them. But that's only for you. Your friends can lie to them all they want. Anyway, lasts up to a minute sustained. Again, tactically useful. Meh. It's funny if you're a deceiver kind of character and you mess with your enemies and lie in general. Hi. I could see a trickster character totally taking this, but that'd probably be the only reason. 8th patron, Rune. This patron is all about sigils, symbols, tomes, texts, and words, or even mathematics. You could go very bookish or learned roleplay vibe here. Spell list, Arcane. Skill, Arcana. I swear, you should be able to change these skills a little bit with your GM, depending on the flavor and story of your character. Because you might not give a damn about Arcana. Hex, Discern Secrets. Granted spell, magic weapon. Cool. Magic weapon will always be helpful for someone in the party. Discern Secrets is a hex that takes 1 action and targets an ally, basically. The target can immediately recall knowledge, seek, or sense motive. You basically force them to do this on your turn. I mean, they could choose not to, but why? They gain a +1 status bonus, which remains in effect for the duration, sustained up to a minute. This is most useful if there's a character in your group that really benefits from recall knowledge checks, or is really good at it already, like a thaumaturge or a magus, or even a fighter. Overall, not all that impressed. Why not just play a wizard? What else are you getting from this? A familiar? That's a wizard. 9th patron, Wild. You just feel in tune with uncivilized places. It's like a witchy druid. Spell list, primal, skill, nature, hex, wilding word. Spell, either summon animal or summon plant or fungus. So those are cool spells and useful for getting more bodies on the battlefield, but the hex is really niche because it only works on an animal, fungus, or plant. They have to make a will save, which they'll suck at, and they either aren't affected, they take -2 to any attempt to harm you, or the penalty plus their sickened 1 or 2, depending on how badly they roll. Critical fail is the 2. This is just freaking boring to me. I mean, seriously, if you were a druid, you could cast the spells that this patron offers, and you just wouldn't care about Wilding Word. So the reason for taking this patron eludes me. Why would you bother? Because you want a witch with a natural feel? Take Mosquito Witch and reflavor the insect things. Maybe it's a plague of illness or something, floating poison needles in a cloud of mist, whatever. Or take the next patron, 10th patron, Winter. The flavor text of the patron mentions being bitterly cruel to those who underestimate the power of the frozen reaches of the world. But I also like that you could be emotionally empty or passive or coldly logical. You could pull off some really fun and interesting roleplay options with this one. Anyway, the spell list. Primal, skill, nature, hex, clinging, ice, hello. Spell, gust of wind. The clinging ice hex. Targets 1 creature, up to a minute sustained. It does 1d4 damage per round. Heightening gives an additional 1d4 damage per round. This has varying results, but the best one is that the target takes double damage each turn, and a -10-foot speed penalty to all of its speeds until the spell ends. This is strategically useful and really fun. And I'm just confused why this patron doesn't have Chilling Spray instead of Baba Yaga. Then Baba Yaga could have something more fitting her legends, like Alarm, or Animal Allies, or Befuddle, or Biting Words, or Breadcrumbs. Witch in the Forest, hello? Or Charm, or Fear, freaking Fear. Or Floating Disc. There's just so many options that fit better than Frosty Fingers. Thank you for joining me today. I'm grateful for your help and kind words in the comments. The next video that I'm going to be producing in this line is going to be the lessons for the witch. And then there's going to be the build for the witch. Thank you to my lovely patrons. I release unique videos on Patreon, do giveaways, and the highest levels get one-on-one time with me and something made for them once a month. And dice, free dice. If you'd like to help me and this channel, you can click on the link in the description for Patreon. If you want to make sure to catch the next video I make, hitting the subscribe button is a good way to remember to check back and see what I've done. Check back from time to time. D&D video game. If you liked the video and think I've earned it, give it a thumbs up or share to tell the algorithm gods that there's something here worth your time. Don't drink that. The next video you could watch is either the witch lessons video or the witch build video, or maybe you want to go watch a cat doing little kitty things, or maybe a goat falling down or screaming or whatever. You know, you do you.